nice and quiet.
Yeah, you didn't even hear it running. Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today is the day after driving this thing stock. We are going to do our day 2 modification. So we figure with muscle car world, the day 2 thing is really big. I don't know why it's frowned upon in the hot rod world, but that's essentially what our plans are for this car. So what we're looking for is what a guy would have done instead of day 2 of driving it off the dealership. Day 2 after buying it off a used car lot in say 1947, what a guy would have done to a used car such as this that has been, this car's been basically restored since the 80s, and it's now, you know, a aged restoration or a used car if we were thinking back to the day. So that's essentially what my plans were for this car. That's what we're going to do, and today we're going to do a little transformation that's going to either make you really angry or you're going to be very happy and it's going to look like a bitchin' hot rod. So let's get started. Just a normal oil leakage type of stuff.
Right, and that's not even that bad on this car. I mean, the back of the trans is hardly leaking. You only got one drip on the on the mount.
Yeah, but that's dripping all. Well, that's probably leaking from the steering box up there.
Yep. Time for the corn grease.
Yeah, the nice thing with these cars with the 32s are, the trans is at the exact same dimension. So you literally pull all this out and it bolts right to the
Oh, nice.
member.
Oh, you just
Everything
a V8 will just go right in it. Okay. Nice.
You could literally do a V8 swap in a day.
Yeah. That's
If
awesome.
we had the engine running on the stand, that would be a cool video. In one day, this is what a hot rodder would have done. Pull it out, swap it in,
Yep.
and get everything up.
That's pretty darn good.
All right. It's infinitely, instantly.
Right. Already looks good.
Look how much cooler that looks already. Just with one. Here, I'll roll you this one. Just make sure. Knew that was coming.
You know, everybody's heard this story.
There we go. Tell this cap hasn't really been off before. Been off for a long time. Back in the pile.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, it was just that it's been in there so long. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, right in here.
Yeah.
The white wall was actually glued. The white
Oh,
wall
yeah,
glued
you
itself to the paint.
Yeah, you can see rubber stuck in there, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, look at it.
The rubber is really stuck.
Shouldn't have to take that off now.
The rubber is just.
Oh man. Got it?
Yep.
There we go. Jeez. That white wall just glued itself in.
Yeah.
Sits high in the front, but it looks much better.
Yeah, definitely.
Just having black wheels. Alright, so I think you can just take this.
Yeah, well, it's gonna need a wrench.
Mine's turning. Use two hands, maybe? Oh, you got the wrench.
There
I don't think it's buttoned in the back, so I believe we can just, once you take
we
this,
go. Now make it even
because Mike and I put it up for the last video to show
Mhm.
how dorky it looks.
easier. If you ever wanted to make a 32 Roadster look dark.
Here, just put the bolt back right through.
Oh, okay, you leave it in there. Gotcha.
So that way, it's for sale at Hershey.
Don't get lost.
Say to the guy, look, I got everything you need.
Oh yeah, right off.
So we will set it. You can see how much the chopped window in my other car,
Yeah.
so how big the stock window is.
Mhm.
Mine's like half that size. Oh, look at that. Already.
It does look better.
Yeah. Without
Yeah,
that frumpy
definitely.
top on the back, it's
Yep.
just like. Yeah, just get rid of all that stuff.
Yep.
Take these off. I mean, just,
Right, yeah,
just
get
cleaning
rid-
up all the things that are sticking off the car. And,
You just simplify it a little bit.
right, so this here is everything you don't need if you were a hot rodder in 1940s going to Muroc or going to El Mirage. This is basically everything you wouldn't need and you would take off. That's essentially what we've done. We've done a makeover on the car and got the Calci haze on, got all the parts off. I ended up getting, just for now because it's a little more simple, got a reproduction rear plain spreader bar that was already shiny. As I have this car for a little while, I'll start looking for originals just to replace it. But we did find as we were taking this apart, as with a lot of restorations, and I'm not saying negative things, but this rear spreader bar appears to be that they faked it. They took a reproduction bar, welded the tabs on, and then they cut the ends and put original type ends on to have that cast look. Couldn't see it when the car was all together. They put some mud over it. Looked great. When you take it apart, you see those things. That's a lot of trickery that you see when people are restoring, which totally works fine. But when you take a car apart, again, to argue our cause here, for anybody who's yelling at us that this is an original car, it's a restored car. A lot of the parts on this car have been faked to be original or are potentially reproductions. So that's a good example. That part that we took off isn't 100% an original piece, but still very good stuff. So the idea with all this stuff is the things we do not need, we end up taking this stuff and selling it either locally or whatever's left over before Hershey, we will take to Hershey. But we have a lot of really good stuff that I won't need. We'll pass it on. The stuff's not getting cut up or damaged or any that way, but I don't need it, so we're gonna pass some of this stuff on. And there's some really good examples of original parts here and some really, really nice reproduction stuff. So, all right, so for me, when looking at the old Dry Lakes photos and the, I'm gonna call it war era photos of hot rods, and that's kind of what my idea with this car is things that the guys would have gotten at the junkyard that could have spruced your car up and basically just bolted on. So much like taking the fenders off, if anybody's still with us after the last modifications or haven't had a stroke, the next couple of things guys would have done, I think, and you've seen a lot of photos, is putting a different steering wheel on, maybe changing the headlights, changing the taillights, some stuff like that. So I'm going to be working on a bunch of those little modifications before we kind of pull it out and take a look at it finally. So one of the things I have a lot of parts sitting on the shelf, obviously, for different types of cars. So we've sold a couple of them in videos. We've shown finding them, and that is this Pontiac accessory banjo. I think, my memory, somebody will correct me, but I think it's like 37 or 36 to 8, somewhere in that range. Pontiac had this really cool accessory banjo. They're kind of rare, can be quite expensive. This is about the nicest one I've ever found. It is very, very nice, almost no cracks in it, maybe some tiny, tiny little imperfections, but it's in great shape. The nicest thing is on these GM steering wheels from this era is they're keyed and splined, and they're tapered. So you can actually just put one of these right onto a Ford column. It matches right up with the keyway and the taper. You can put it right on and it slides through the splines and you don't have to grind or modify anything. And that's why in some old Don Montgomery books and some of the old Dry Lakes photos, I've seen a lot of 32 Fords and early Fords in general, but specifically 32 Roadsters photos with this wheel on. It's not super common, but you did see a lot of the cars running banjo wheels of some sort, and this is one of the ones that always caught me, and I thought it's pretty neat. And I don't think people nowadays use it as often as they should, because I think they're a really, really cool wheel, and it's nice that they pretty much bolt on. So I'm going to slide this on, take the other wheel off. I've already undone the clip for the horn rod, and then we'll have to figure out, I'm hoping maybe this horn rod and the button will basically fit right in that wheel. If not, I will have to make something that will fit. But I'm going to pull the horn rod all the way out. If you have a closed car, that's a problem. Can be a problem. And we gotta take this nut off and get our puller. Let's see how tight it actually is. We're gonna need a puller, we're gonna need an impact. Oh, wow, no, that was not tight. Okay. I imagine this is pretty tight. Luckily this car was put together in recent history, so I was able to rock it back and forth and knock it off. Go. Alright, so no heads are exploding. I made a cut on the car, holy crap. So it ended up being that this steering wheel has to sit in just a little more. The actual depth of the center here that goes through the steering column is a little deeper, so it required cutting basically an inch off of this. So I took one of these old school Sears muffler tailpipe cutoff tool that I have, and they work really well for stuff like this. And I was able to just make a nice clean cut on here. Basically you just take the bushing out, that's all you do, and we can put a replacement bushing in there, and everything will be like it was before, just 1 inch shorter. And if you really care, you can just extend this piece or get another tube. We didn't really do anything that crazy to the car, but so I'll put another bushing in here when we're all finished before I tighten the wheel down for the final time. But I wanted to show, I got the keyway just started in there. Of course you got to tighten everything down to press it in, but this goes in, and I think I have it enough now that we can. So I basically have a socket down there with a hammer we can tap just to get everything to seat so we get enough threads. But you can see what we're going with here. That'll all start. We can crank everything down, it'll pull it. But the nice thing is with these Pontiac wheels is they have an opening in the back here that the tube actually is meant to seat inside and cover this this tube. So it basically covers everything up. It's going to look like factory when it's all done, which is really nice. So that was the only thing that I had to change. I did not realize, because anytime I've messed with these, they've been on cars that were already customized, or I was doing the, starting from scratch. So everything should fit pretty good. I like the look of that. So I will get everything all set, get the bushing in there, and then we can tighten this all down. Make sure that my tube length, I left about 1/4 inch of play for it to draw down in before it touches in the backside. If for some reason it does touch, I'll have to just take a little bit more off, but it's just under it's just under an inch of depth that it covers the steering column tube here. So we have a pretty good amount of room for it pulling everything down and tight. But we will see. I measured about 1 inch and gave myself 1/4 inch of movement of drawing the steering wheel onto the steering column itself. So let me get that all prepped, get the bushing back in, and then we can put this back on. It should look pretty cool. Alright, so last little detail for this video on the Roadster here. I made it out of 16 gauge, these little brackets, so when you take the fenders off on a 32 Ford, but you want to keep the hood, the front latch actually bolts right through the frame rails, no problem. The rear latch, there was actually like doubled up metal here on the fender itself with 2 little holes, and you bolted it through. So that's how it was held, and it actually, because of the taper of the frame, it sat out here. So I looked at a bunch of old photos, and it looks like what guys were doing was just making little brackets, whether they bolted them on top of the frame and drilled holes. And I saw some crude options. I saw some, they had a 90-degree bracket and they just drilled holes in. What I decided to do to avoid drilling unnecessary holes into the frame and chipping up the paint anymore is I made these little brackets that basically, I had a pattern for the steering box flange, and I used that pattern to kind of create half that pattern to create this shape, and I made a little 90-degree bracket, and it actually fits right over the bolt holes. And the nice thing is on 32 to 34, at the very least, maybe more early Fords, they punch the frame for a steering box for right-hand drive. So I just used the same bracket reversed for the other side, and we'll just grab some bolts for the frame on that side, because obviously it doesn't have bolts on that side. And this little bracket, oops, I did spray with some black lacquer paint just to kind of match the frame a little bit. I was gonna do like when I made the pattern, I had it satin black, and it just stood out because everything else is kind of a glossy black. So I ended up just spraying them a shiny lacquer black. My buddy Jerry Laboranti, he has a 34-3 window that we pulled out of Michigan, and he showed me he found some Rust-Oleum black lacquer spray paint that's gloss that actually matches the original Ford black pretty good. He did some touch-ups on that car, so I keep a couple of cans of that around for stuff just like this. So we got that on. Now we can bolt this on. There we go.
Man, she looks good in the sunlight.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our first round of changes to this 32 Roadster that we picked up a little while ago. If you kept through the video long enough and you weren't totally disgusted, you probably will agree that the car looks a lot better. For everybody that's already left the video and clicked off and unsubscribed us, good riddance, don't care. This thing is super cool, and really, in the end of the day, for any of the people that complained in the last video and in the comments, I didn't do anything crazy. It's not like we cut the car in half and drove it off a bridge or did anything insane like you see with some YouTubers that are doing stuff just to get views. We're doing stuff that still respects the car. I just pulled the fenders off, and we're doing little odds and ends that a guy would have done back in the day. So that's where we're doing our day 2 in the hot rodding world. So sort of in day 2, after you bought this off a used car lot, you would have taken the fenders off and done all that stuff. Now we're ready to take this thing to Muroc, run it down the lakes and see how it does. And then we'll probably do our next round of modifications in our next video on this car. But let us know what you guys think down below of the car. I'm sure people will not hold back. I don't really care. It's my car. Really happy with how it looks. And we knocked a little bit of the old man off of it today, and I am super happy about that. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.